Kelsey's house was the prettiest one on Maple Street. Everyone in the neighborhood said so. The garden was green and full of white roses. The path to the front door was made of smooth gray stones. The windows were always clean, and the soft, cream-colored curtains hung perfectly still behind the glass. From the outside, it looked like the kind of home where happy people sat together and laughed over dinner. But inside, the house was quiet. The kind of quiet that has weight to it. On this Tuesday evening, like most evenings, Kelsey was alone in the kitchen. She wore a simple gray dress, and her light brown hair was tied back. She moved around the room with care, the way someone does when they have done the same thing many times before. She placed 2 white plates on the dining table, 2 glasses, 2 forks, 2 napkins, folded into small, neat squares. She always set the table for 2. It was a habit she could not stop, even though she often ate by herself. Dinner was almost ready. Tonight it was roasted chicken with potatoes and a green salad with tomatoes from the garden. The food smelled wonderful. The table looked warm and inviting. Everything was in its place. Then her phone rang. "Hey, Kels." It was Chad. His voice was tired, and he sounded far away, like his mind was already in another room. "I'm stuck at the office again. This project, it's just never ending. Don't wait up for me." Kelsey stood by the stove. She closed her eyes for one small moment. "Again?" she asked. I know. I'm sorry. Save me a plate?" She said okay. She always said okay. Then she put the phone down on the counter and looked at the table. At the second plate, she stood there for a few seconds. Then she picked it up. She put it back in the cupboard. She put the second glass away, too. She folded the extra napkin and placed it in the drawer. Then she sat down alone. The dining room was large, much too large for one person. The chandelier above the table gave a soft golden light, but somehow it made the empty chair across from her look even emptier. There was a small vase of fresh flowers in the center of the table, yellow ones. She had picked them from the garden that afternoon because she thought they might make dinner feel less lonely. They didn't. She picked up her fork. The sound of metal touching the plate was sharp and clear in the silence. Clink, clink. No music was playing, no television, just that sound. Her fork, her plate, and the hum of the refrigerator somewhere behind the wall. This was her routine now. Cook for 2, eat for 1. Kelsey was not the kind of woman who cried easily. She had never been that way, not even when she was young. But she did feel something heavy these days, something sitting in the middle of her chest, like a stone. She could not give it a name. It was not quite sadness. It was more like being forgotten while still being in the room. While she ate, she reached for her phone again. Not to call anyone. There was no one to call at this hour. She opened an app. It was the home security app. She and Chad had installed cameras around the house last year after a neighbor had a break-in. There were 4 cameras, one at the front door, one at the back of the house, one in the garage, and one in the kitchen. Kelsey liked to check them during dinner. It made her feel less alone, somehow, like the cameras were watching over her. She tapped on the camera, called Kitchen Cam. The screen showed a clear picture of her own kitchen. The back door, The counter with the green vase, the window above the sink where the evening light was turning orange. Then, at exactly 7:15, the screen went black. Kelsey frowned. She tapped the screen once, twice. Nothing. Just a dark, empty rectangle. She waited. She kept eating, slowly, watching the black screen. After about 10 minutes, the picture came back. The kitchen looked the same. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. This was not the first time. Kelsey had noticed this before many times, in fact. Every night, right around the time she sat down to eat, the kitchen camera stopped working for exactly 10 minutes. Then it came back, like nothing had happened. At first, she thought it was a problem with the Wi-Fi, or maybe the camera needed a new update. She even asked Chad about it once, but he said it was probably nothing. But tonight, for some reason, Kelsey did not believe that anymore. She opened the Notes app on her phone and wrote, Tuesday, 7:15 p.m., camera dark, 10 minutes. She looked at her older notes. There were 5 entries now, all the same time, all the same length. She put the phone down and looked toward the kitchen doorway. The hall was dark. The house was very still. Something was not right. She could feel it, the way you feel rain coming before the first drop falls. The next morning, Kelsey woke before the alarm. She could hear Chad in the shower, the water running, the sound of him moving behind the bathroom door. He had come home very late last night. She heard his car in the driveway sometime after midnight, but she pretended to be asleep. She did not want to talk. She put on her robe and walked downstairs. The morning light came through the kitchen windows, warm and yellow. The coffee maker was ready. She always set it up the night before. She pressed the button and listened to the machine start working. But today, she was not thinking about coffee. She was thinking about the kitchen. She wanted to look at it carefully, the way a detective looks at a room in a crime show. She started near the back door. She got down on her knees and looked at the floor. And there, near the edge of the doormat, she found something. A small mark. A smudge of mud, dark brown, almost red, like the clay you see near a river or a construction site. Kelsey stood up and looked at her own garden shoes by the door. They were clean. She looked at Chad's work shoes on the rack. Also clean black leather. Not a spot of dirt. The mud on the floor did not come from their shoes. She was sure of it. She felt a cold feeling in her stomach, like swallowing ice water. She kept looking. Near the sink, she noticed something else. One of her tea mugs was in the wrong place. Kelsey kept her mugs on the second shelf of the cupboard, all in a row, handles facing right. She was very particular about this. It was a small thing, but it mattered to her. The kitchen was her space. She knew every cup, every plate, every spoon. The white mug with the small blue bird on it was now sitting on the first shelf. Handle facing left. Someone had used that mug. Someone had put it back in the wrong spot. Kelsey held the mug in both hands and stared at it. Her mind started to move fast. Too fast. Who was in the kitchen? When did they come? Why? A dark thought came to her, the kind of thought that arrives quietly but fills the whole room. Was Chad bringing someone to the house? A woman? Was there someone who came in through the back door while Kelsey ate her quiet dinner in the other room? Someone who drank tea from Kelsey's mug and left mud on Kelsey's floor? Or, and this thought was even worse, Even colder was someone getting into the house without anyone knowing. Kelsey put the mug back carefully. She washed her hands. She tried to breathe normally. Then she heard Chad coming down the stairs. He came into the kitchen with his hair still wet, his tie hanging loose around his neck. He was looking at his phone. He was always looking at his phone these days. "Morning," he said, not looking up. "Chad." Kelsey kept her voice calm. "I found mud near the back door this morning, and one of my mugs was moved to the wrong shelf." He glanced up for only a second. "Mud? Probably from the gardener. The gardener comes on Thursdays. Today is Wednesday." Chad poured his coffee and shrugged. "Maybe you moved the mug yourself and forgot. You've been a little stressed, Kels. You're home all day by yourself. Sometimes that makes people overthink things." She looked at him. He was already reading his phone again, his thumb scrolling fast across the screen, and she noticed that he tilted the phone slightly away from her, just enough so she could not see what was on the screen. That was new. Or maybe it wasn't new. Maybe he had been doing it for weeks, and she had only just started to pay attention. "You don't think it's strange?" she asked. "What?" "The mud, the mug, the camera going dark every night at the same time." Chad looked at her. Really looked. "For the first time that morning, Kelsey, you're making something out of nothing. I promise. Everything is fine." He kissed her on the forehead, a quick, light kiss that felt more like a habit than a feeling, and left for work. Kelsey stood at the window and watched his car drive away down the quiet street. A neighbor was walking a small brown dog. A bird sat in the oak tree, singing a song that nobody listened to. Everything looked the same as always, but it didn't feel the same. The distance between her and Chad was no longer just about time. It was not only about late nights and cold dinners and phone calls that lasted 30 seconds. There was something else growing between them now. Something she could almost see, almost touch, like a word written on foggy glass. If she could just wipe the fog away, she would know what it said. That night, Kelsey did not sleep well. She lay in bed next to Chad, who breathed slow and heavy in the dark. She kept thinking about the mud, the mug, the camera going dark at the same time every night. By the time the first light of morning came through the curtains, she had made a decision. She was going to find the truth. She did not tell Chad. She did not call her sister or her old college friend or anyone else. This was something she had to do alone. After Chad left for work, Kelsey drove to a small electronics shop on the other side of town. The man behind the counter was old and friendly. She told him she wanted a small recording device, something that could record sound for many hours. He showed her a tiny black device about the size of a thumb drive. "This one records up to 12 hours, he said. "Very good quality, very quiet." She paid in cash and drove home. Back in the kitchen, she looked around. She needed a place to hide it. Her eyes landed on the tall green vase on the counter, the one filled with dried lavender and small white flowers. No one ever touched that vase. It was just decoration. She placed the recorder deep inside, under the dried flowers. You could not see it. You could not hear it. It was invisible. Then she waited. The day was long and strange. Kelsey tried to do her normal things, cleaning, reading, watering the garden, but she could not relax. Every small sound made her turn her head. The house settling with a quiet creak, the wind tapping a branch against the kitchen window, a car driving slowly past the house outside. She kept looking over her shoulder, even though she knew she was alone. She felt watched. That was the only word for it. Like invisible eyes were somewhere in the walls. In the afternoon, her phone rang. It was Chad. A short call, just like always. "I'll be late again tonight," he said. "Okay," she said. But then she heard something in the background. A voice. A woman's voice, quick and low, saying something Kelsey could not quite hear. "Who was that?" Kelsey asked. "Just Chico," Chad said. "My assistant. We're finishing the merger paperwork. Listen, I have to go. I'll try not to be too late." The phone went silent. Kelsey put the phone on the table and sat very still. Chico. She had met her once, at Chad's company holiday party in December. A tall woman with short dark hair and quick, clever eyes. She had been polite at the party, but there was something guarded about her. She smiled without showing her teeth, and she kept her hands still at her sides, even when she talked. Kelsey remembered thinking, this woman watches everything. Now, sitting alone in the quiet kitchen, Kelsey's mind started to put pieces together. What if Chad and Chico were not just working late? What if Chico was the one coming into the house? What if the camera was going dark on purpose so Chico could enter the kitchen without being seen, right when Kelsey was eating in the other room? What if they were passing secret documents? What if it was an affair, not just a romantic one, but something else? Something about business, about money, about things Kelsey was not allowed to know? She felt sick, a slow, turning feeling deep inside her. That evening, while Chad was still at the office, Kelsey went into a room she almost never entered, Chad's home office. It was at the end of the upstairs hallway, a small room with a dark wooden desk, a leather chair, and shelves full of thick folders and binders. Chad always kept the door closed. Kelsey had never been told to stay out, but the message was clear. This room is his. Tonight, she opened the door. The desk was neat. The computer was off. Papers were stacked in tidy piles. She opened the second drawer and looked through the folders. They were in alphabetical order, or they should have been. But something was different. The order was wrong, and one folder was missing completely. It was a thick blue folder. Kelsey remembered seeing it before. Chad had once called it the merger file, the most important project at his company this year. Worth millions, he had said. Now the blue folder was gone. Kelsey sat down in Chad's leather chair. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, from something sharper than cold, from anger, and from a feeling of being completely alone in a truth she did not want to understand. If Chad was having an affair, that would hurt. But this, the secrets, the missing files, the locked doors and hidden phone screens, this was something different. It felt like she had become a stranger in her own home, like she was living inside a lie that had been carefully built around her, one quiet evening at a time. She closed the drawer. She left the room. She closed the door softly behind her, as if she did not want the house itself to know she had been inside. The next evening came quickly, too quickly. At 7:10 p.m., Kelsey sat down at the dining table. The plate in front of her held pasta with tomato sauce. Simple food, nothing special. Next to the plate, she had placed a book, a mystery novel. She had chosen it on purpose. something to hold in her hands, something to look at so she would seem busy and unaware. She opened the book. She pretended to read, but her eyes were not moving across the words. Her heart was beating hard. She could feel it in her neck, in her fingertips, in the soft places behind her ears. On the table beside her plate, her phone was open. The security app was on the screen. The kitchen camera showed the usual picture. The counter, the back door, the green vase with the dried flowers. 7:15 p.m. The screen went black. Kelsey put her fork down. She closed the book. She stood up slowly and carefully, the way a person moves when they do not want to make a sound. She did not go to the main kitchen door. Instead, she walked through the hallway to the pantry, a small storage room that connected to the kitchen from the side. The pantry door was slightly open. Through the narrow gap, Kelsey could see into the kitchen, and someone was there. A figure stood near the counter, moving quickly and quietly. The person wore dark clothes, black pants, a dark jacket. Their back was turned to the pantry door. The only light came from a small flashlight on the counter. Kelsey pressed her hand against her mouth. Her heart was so loud in her chest she was afraid it could be heard. The figure opened a drawer, the one where Kelsey kept important household papers. The person pulled out a folder and placed it flat on the counter. Then, from a small black bag, the figure took out a flat device, a portable scanner. They began to scan the pages, one by one, quickly and carefully. The scanner made a low, soft humming sound. Next, the figure moved to a small wooden box near the window. Kelsey knew that box. It was Chad's watch box. He kept his 3 good watches inside it, gifts from his company. The person opened the box, looked inside, and took out 2 of the watches. They disappeared into the black bag. Kelsey's hands were tight fists at her sides. Her mouth was dry. She took one long, slow breath. Then she pushed the pantry door open and stepped into the kitchen. Stop. The figure spun around. The light from the window fell across her face. It was Chico. Chico's eyes went wide. Her lips opened, but no sound came out. The scanner was still in her hand. Chad's watches were in her bag. For a moment, the 2 women just stared at each other. Kelsey, Chico said finally. Her voice was tight, like a guitar string about to break. What are you doing in my house? Kelsey asked. Her own voice surprised her. It was calm, steady, like something deep inside her had been preparing for this moment without her knowing. Chico slowly placed the scanner down on the counter. Her eyes moved to the back door, then back to Kelsey. It looks like you're stealing from us. Chico was quiet for a long moment. Then the fear on her face faded. Something harder took its place. Something cold and almost bored, like a mask falling away to show the real face underneath. I've been coming here for weeks, Chico said, every night. During your little dinner, she tilted her head, studying Kelsey. You never noticed, not once. The words landed like stones in Kelsey's chest. Then Chico said something that changed everything. I thought you knew, she said, and there was almost a laugh in her voice. Chad told me the house would be clear at this time. He said you'd be in the dining room. He said you were predictable. Kelsey blinked. The kitchen felt like it was tilting, just slightly, to one side. Your husband, Chico continued, told me you never come into the kitchen during dinner. He said you eat at the same time every night, same place, same book, same routine. The word hung between them in the quiet kitchen, predictable. It was a small word, but it carried the weight of every silent dinner, every lonely evening, every night. Kelsey had spent waiting for a car that came home too late. Before Kelsey could speak again, she heard footsteps. Not hers, not Chico's. These were slow and steady, coming from the hallway behind the kitchen. Chad appeared in the doorway. He was not wearing his work clothes. No suit, no tie. He was dressed in jeans and a dark sweater, like someone who had been waiting, not working. His face was calm. He looked at Chico. He looked at the scanner, the open bag, the watches. He did not look surprised. In his right hand, he held a small black voice recorder. A tiny red light blinked on its side. Chad? Kelsey said. He looked at Chico first. His face was hard, like a door that had been shut and locked. I have everything I need, he said. Chico's face turned white. You set yourself up, Chad said. He placed the recorder on the kitchen counter. I've known about you for months, Chico. The missing files, the copied contracts. You've been stealing from the company and selling what you found. Chico took a step back. Her eyes moved to the back door. Chad turned to Kelsey. His face softened, but only a little. Kels, I can explain. Then explain, she said. Her voice was flat, like a table, like a door that had no handle. He let out a long breath. I suspected Chico for a long time. She was the one disabling the kitchen camera. She had access to the security system through her work computer. I needed proof, real proof, something the police and the lawyers could use. So you used me, Kelsey said. Chad paused. I stayed late at the office on purpose. Every night. I knew that if the house seemed empty, if Chico thought you were busy eating dinner, she would feel safe to come in. I knew she thought you were too. He stopped. Predictable, Kelsey finished for him. She already told me. Chad looked at the floor. I didn't want to scare you, he said quietly. I thought if I told you, you might act different. You might change your routine, and Chico would notice. The whole plan would fall apart. So instead, Kelsey said, and her voice was not loud, but it was the clearest it had been in months. You let me eat alone, every single night. You let me worry about mud on the floor and cups in the wrong place. You let me think I was losing my mind. You let me lie awake, wondering if my husband was having an affair. The kitchen was absolutely still. Even Chico did not move. You used my loneliness, Kelsey said, like a tool, like part of a business plan. Chad opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Chico saw her chance. She took a quick step toward the back door, but Kelsey turned to her and spoke in a calm, clear voice. Don't move. I called the police 10 minutes ago, before I walked into this kitchen. Chico stopped. The room was completely still. Then, from outside, they heard the sound of a car coming down the street, and then another. Red and blue light flickered against the kitchen window. The police took Chico away that night. She did not fight. She did not say much. She looked smaller than before, standing between two officers in the flashing red and blue light from the patrol cars. The stolen documents were found in her bag. Chad's watches were recovered. Later, at Chico's apartment, the police found more. A flash drive full of copied files, 3 pieces of jewelry from the house, and a list of names she had planned to sell the information to. That part was over. It was a case for lawyers and courts now, not for Kelsey. But the other thing, the thing between her and Chad that had not gone anywhere, it was still there, sitting in the kitchen like an uninvited guest who would not leave. After the police were gone, Chad sat at the kitchen table. He looked tired. Not the tired of a long work day. A deeper kind of tired, the kind that comes from knowing you made a mistake and you cannot go back and undo it. "I'm sorry," he said. Kelsey stood near the window. She did not sit down. "I know you are," she said. "I should have told you everything." "Yes, you should have." He looked at her with tired, open eyes. "I thought I was protecting you." "You were protecting your company," Kelsey said. She was not shouting. She was not crying. Her voice was just honest, the way a window is clear. "You turned our home into a trap. You used my routine, my dinner, my loneliness. You made me part of your plan without asking me." Chad rubbed his face with both hands. For the first time in a very long time, he had no answer, no quick solution, no meeting to run to, no email to send. He was just a man sitting at a kitchen table, and there was nothing in the room except the truth. A few days passed. Chad told his company he needed time away. He did not say how long. Kelsey did not ask. The cameras stayed off, all 4 of them. Kelsey did not want to look at screens anymore. She trusted her own eyes now, her own ears, her own instincts, the same instincts that had led her to the mud on the floor, the mug on the wrong shelf, and the woman in her kitchen. One evening, about a week after it all happened, Kelsey came downstairs and smelled something cooking. She stopped in the hallway. The kitchen light was on. She walked in and found Chad standing at the counter. He had a cutting board in front of him and a pile of vegetables. He was trying to chop an onion, slowly and not very well. His eyes were red from the onion, and he was holding the knife the wrong way. "What are you doing?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up. There was something careful in his face, not confidence, not the smooth, sure expression she was used to. Something quieter, something like hope, but a small and uncertain version of it. "Making dinner," he said, "for 2. Kelsey looked at the table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 forks, 2 napkins, folded into small, uneven squares. She did not say everything was okay, because it was not. Not yet. Maybe not. For a long time. There were conversations they still needed to have. Hard ones. Honest ones. The kind of conversations that cannot be rushed or finished in one night. But she walked into the kitchen. She stood next to him. She picked up a red pepper and began to cut it into thin strips. They worked side by side, their hands moving, the kitchen warm and bright around them. Through the open window, the evening air drifted in, carrying the smell of cut grass and something sweet blooming in the garden. No one was eating alone tonight, and for now, just for now, that was enough. If Kelsey's story made you feel something tonight, maybe you felt her loneliness, maybe you felt her strength, then you're exactly the kind of person we make these stories for. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who loves a good story, and subscribe to Kavico English Storytime so you never miss the next one. We'll be here every week with a new story and a new reason to keep learning English. See you in the next video.